Taken a few hours ago, tracer fire seen over Tripoli. We also just got new pictures from the French military planes taking off from an aircraft carrier. The coalition flew 175 sorties over Libya in the last 24 hours. Officials now say that Gaddafi's air power has been rendered ineffective, and they've shifted to targeting Gaddafi's ground forces in Ajdabaya and Misrata. In those cities, however, attacks continue. Watch what happened to NBC's Richard Engel just outside Ajdabaya while he was reporting on how outgunned the opposition is.
It's a toy gun. This is amazing. He just handed me his gun. I didn't realize until he put it in my hands. It's actually just made of plastic. It's a toy.
3 explosions 50 yards away.
So, as we were doing the interviews, incoming round just landed in this area. So some of the rebels are now starting to flee.
Well, Engel reports that incoming fire was from Gaddafi positions some 5 miles away from where he and the opposition forces were standing. We also have new video of the scene from the ground in Misrata, posted on YouTube, sent to us by one of our sources in that city. We cannot independently, of course, confirm when it was shot. Take a look. Witnesses in Misrata say that Gaddafi forces fired on the main hospital there today, with shelling going on for 40 minutes at a time, killing at least 2 people and leaving patients and doctors rattled. Also tonight, new information about Gaddafi's inner circle reaching out to the United States. Senior U.S. officials tell CNN that one of Gaddafi's closest confidants, a brother-in-law, has been calling the State Department almost every day. Arab allies say they are also getting calls from Gaddafi's inner circle. We also heard this talk by Secretary of State Clinton yesterday, though U.S. officials say the intention behind these calls is murky. Could be a sign Gaddafi's regime is exploring its options, looking for a way out. Could also be disinformation being put forward by the U.S. and others to make Gaddafi not trust the people around him. In an interview with CNN Espanol, President Obama said that Gaddafi could hunker down and wait it out even though his forces have been weakened. Today, Secretary of State Clinton said Gaddafi and his inner circle have some choices to make.
It will be up to Gaddafi and his insiders to determine what their next steps are. But we would certainly encourage that they would make the right decision and not only institute a real comprehensive ceasefire, but withdraw from the cities, end the military actions, and prepare for a transition that does not include Colonel Gaddafi. The quickest way for him to end this is to actually serve the Libyan people by leaving.
Well, Gaddafi shows no sign that he's ready to back down. He and his government continue to insist that the airstrikes are killing and injuring civilians, though they've presented no evidence. In a Pentagon briefing today, the chief of staff for the Odyssey Dawn Joint Task Force said there is no evidence of any civilian casualties. And when journalists in Tripoli asked to be taken to hospitals where civilians are allegedly being injured or injured civilians are being treated, instead, government minders take them on trips like this, bus trips to pro-Gaddafi rallies, where the minders themselves help whip up the crowds. ITN's Britain Channel 4 Jonathan Miller asked to see some of those alleged civilian targets, and wounded, the minder took him to an old naval warehouse that had been hit in a strike, clearly a military target, and when he confronted the government minder, the guy had no answers. Watch.
Why did you bring us to a naval target?
It's who attacked here.
Yes, it's a military.
Why attack it here?
But it's a military
it's
target.
It's just for study and just for repair. Why bomb it here?
But Salim, you told us.
What?
You told us that many civilians have been killed, and many civilians injured.
What is this? What is this?
This is a military.
It's not money. It's our people.
This is a military
target. It's our money.
Target.
It's our land.
Anti-government protesters in Syria clashed today with security forces in the city of Dara. About a dozen vehicles were set ablaze. Human rights activists say at least 15 people were killed by security forces. While the United States, Western Europe, and even most Arab nations are focused on Libya, parts of the Mideast are boiling over. They've been cracking down in Syria since last week. At times, security forces firing tear gas to disperse protesters. President Bashar al-Assad's government has tried to isolate Dara, cutting off electricity, telephone service, Activists say at least 21 people have died there since Friday. In Yemen, which has seen massive protests, the president finally agreed today to government reforms. But at the same time, Yemen's parliament extended his emergency powers for another 30 days. Last week, Yemen security forces launched a violent crackdown on protesters, killing more than 50. On Sunday, thousands turned out for the funerals of many of those who died. And in Bahrain, weeks of peaceful demonstrations against the ruling family turned violent last week when security forces launched a crackdown, chasing protesters out of a main square they've been occupying in the capital, Manama, killing some protesters. Saudi forces had also moved into Bahrain. Earlier tonight, I spoke by phone to Waisam Tarif, human rights activist in Syria, on the violence unfolding there. I want to point out that we offered to talk to him without using his name, but he insisted that he wanted his name used. We considered not doing the interview, but in the end, we believe he is well aware of the dangers he faces, and we decided to respect his request. We saw today Syrian authorities arrested a prominent rights activist, and yet you want us not only to talk to you, but you want us to use your name. Why do you want us to use your name? Why is that so important?
Well, it is important. The high wall of fear in Syria is falling. People and Syrian people who are living in the exile, Syrian people who are living abroad, who are calling Arab networks, TVs, and hiding their names and disguising their voices should stop it now. People are dying right now in Daraa. We have been living in this country for 50 years under emergency law. This element of fear has to be broken.
What is the situation on the ground there?
Well, in Daraa, Daraa has been in blackout. There is no landlines working. Mobile phones are not working. There is no electricity at the moment. The security forces have invaded the Omari Mosque last night and killed 6 people. A lady of 48 years old was injured. She died at 10 o'clock in the morning. Her family tried to bury her. The regime, the security forces prevented the funeral because they know that during the funeral people gather and people become more excited. And that caused much more anger, and people gathered again around 2 o'clock around the mosque, and they were sieged by security forces. So villages around Daraa came to another area called Mahatta, trying to support the protesters, and then security forces committed more brutality. We have confirmed 15 names of people who have been killed. Another 8 names now are being circulated, and we are trying to confirm the names. People are being slaughtered right now in Daraa.
The protesters, though, unlike in Tunisia, unlike in Egypt, they're not calling for the end of President Assad's regime.
No. Until now, no one has told the president to leave. They are asking for very simple and realistic demands. They are asking for the release of prisoners of conscience. They are asking for the abolishment of emergency law. They are asking for reform in the country. Syria is full of young people with lots of potentials, with lots of qualifications. They have to be given the chance to prove themselves and to build the country. This is not the way that President Assad should be managing this. He has to start listening. It's the time to start listening and acting. He can't afford any more promises. That the reform should have started 11 years ago, not now. This man has to start listening to the demands of his people now.
Waisam Tarif, I applaud your courage and I appreciate you talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
When the earthquake happened, students at Ishinomaki Elementary evacuated out of the school. They had no idea a tsunami was coming. Out of 108 students at the school that day, 77 are either dead or missing. That's 70% of the children at the school. Only a shell stands where children learned. Backpack after backpack sits for parents to retrieve, along with a picture of the school Little League team, the bats they used. art bags filled with crayons, all waiting to be identified and brought home.
It's hard to believe. One school, one town, Ishinomaki, Japan. That's CNN's Kyung-la reporting. The death toll rose to nearly 9,500 today, with more than 15,000 still missing. So many stories still to be told, so many people to be recovered. Fewer than 10 Americans are unaccounted for right now, according to the U.S. State Department. Tonight, breaking news on several fronts in Tokyo. Officials warning residents not to give tap water to infants or use it in formula after tests found levels of radioactive iodine twice the limit for babies. Stores are seeing a run on bottled water, as you can imagine. Tokyo's government said it's going to give water to 80,000 households with babies, according to Japanese television. Keep in mind, Tokyo is 150 miles from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. At the plant today, another setback. Smoke began pouring from the badly damaged number 3 reactor, forcing more evacuations of workers. Late word tonight, they've reportedly resumed their work inside. We have new pictures to show you taken inside the control rooms of number 1 and number 2 reactors. The plant's owner, TEPCO, said 2 workers were injured at the plant today while working with an electrical panel. Earlier today, I talked to an American technician who was working inside the plant when the earthquake struck. Here's what Danny Udy told me in our exclusive interview.
It went on for a long time, and then while we were there, we just got into the corner, myself and my other co-workers and friends, and the Japanese people tried to get up close to some of the main structure and the beams that were there and do the best we could, because we couldn't make it to the door. It was shaking too far and too much, too violently for us to get out.
He was lucky to get out. We'll have more of that interview